Day 732, Wednesday, November 12th. Luke 1:1-4 and John 1:1-18. Luke 1:1-4. NKJV, inasmuch as many have taken in hand to set in order a narrative of those things which have been fulfilled among us, just as those who from the beginning were eyewitnesses and ministers of the word delivered them to us, it seemed good to me also, having had perfect understanding of all things from the very first, to write to you an orderly account, most excellent Theophilus, that you may know the certainty of those things in which you were instructed. John 1:1-18 NKJV. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men, and the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. There was a man sent from God, whose name was John. This man came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all through him might believe. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light which gives light to every man coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, to those who believe in his name, who were born, not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. John bore witness of him and cried out, saying, This was he of whom I said, He who comes after me is preferred before me, for he was before me. And of his fullness we have all received, and grace for grace, for the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, who is in the bosom of the Father, he has declared him. Daily Deep Dive, Luke 1:2. It's worth noting that the word translated in the KJV, NKJV for minister in the Greek comes from uto, hypo, equal to under, epsilon, pepsilon, taueta, eretes, equal to rower, from episigmao, to row. So literally, uteter epsilon taueta, originally meant an under-rower, a subordinate oarsman in a Greek trireme or galley. These were the men rowing on the lower deck, working under command of a higher officer. Over time, the term broadened from the nautical image to mean an assistant, attendant, or helper to a superior, like an aide or subordinate official, and a servant or functionary, acting under authority. By the 1st century, in Koine Greek usage, euteter epsilon taueta was commonly used for anyone carrying out orders under another's direction, whether in civil, religious, or spiritual contexts. In the New Testament, euteret appears about 20 times, with meanings including 1. An attendant or servant, for example the officers of the high priest, John 7:45-46, Luke 4:20. Such as in Acts 13:5, describing John Mark as a helper to Paul and Barnabas. 3. A minister or servant of the word, Luke 1, uses it of those who were servants of the word, that is, assistants in proclaiming the message. In English Bibles, translators often render upperetes as minister, when the context implies spiritual service under divine authority rather than menial or physical labor. For example, in Acts 2:6-16, Christ says to Paul, I have appeared to you to appoint you a servant, upierarhotoetanu, and a witness. Here, minister captures the sense of servant under orders in God's work. So minister reflects the dignified sense of subordination to God's mission, while servant would emphasize humility and service in general. Luke 1:3. Luke says he had perfect understanding. The Greek for perfect means diligent, accurate, exact. I believe Luke is simply illustrating that he had worked very diligently to be accurate in his record. We covered most excellent Theophilus in the introduction to Luke. Luke 1:4. The word for instructed in Greek means to be taught by word of mouth, orally instructed. John 1:1. I'm going to take this opportunity to speak about the Septuagint, as I will reference it from time to time. After the Babylonian exile 6th century BC, many Jews began speaking Aramaic rather than Hebrew in daily life. Hebrew continued to be used for worship and scholarship, but was no longer the common spoken language for most Jews. By the 3rd century BC, as Jewish communities spread throughout the Greek-speaking world, especially Alexandria, Egypt, many Jews had adopted Greek as their main language. Because of this, they had trouble understanding the Hebrew scriptures. Around this time, Jewish scholars in Alexandria began translating the Hebrew Bible into Greek, producing what became known as the Septuagint, commonly abbreviated LXX. According to tradition, the first part translated was the Torah Pentateuch, under the reign of Ptolemy II Philadelphus c. 285-247 BC, with the rest of the books added over the next century or so. I wanted to reference the Septuagint for John 1:1 because I find it interesting that John was inspired to start his gospel with in the beginning, or in Greek, Inu Arhochi, which is the exact same way Genesis 1 begins in the Septuagint. John takes us back to Genesis 1:1, or the beginning, to start his gospel. We are immediately introduced to a being called the Word. Even though we have read this many times, it's worth remembering that John doesn't use the name of Jesus Christ until verse 17. He is intentionally teaching his audience a lot of information about this being in a very systematic way. The word in Greek is lambda omicron gamma omicrons logos. It's a very common word, used 330 times in the New Testament. Lambda omicron gamma omicrons logos is actually a difficult word to translate into a single word in English. It's often used about something that is being communicated, something said, but it's also used in connection with revealing something that was previously unknown. John is the only one of the New Testament writers to use this word logos in a personified way toward this God being, and he does it 7 times in his writings. In a personified sense, we get a being who is communicating on behalf of, or communicating to reveal someone and something. He came to reveal the Father, Matthew 11:27, Luke 10:22. We could call him the spokesman for the God family at that time. This being, the Word, was both with God and was God. In the Greek, this phrase "was with God" implies more than simple proximity. It suggests an active, intimate relationship or face-to-face orientation. The phrase emphasizes the close dynamic relationship between the word logos and God, a unity of purpose and presence. John 1:3. This God being the Word, was from the very beginning and created all things, both visible and invisible, Col 1:16. John 1:4. Physical life, yes, but also spirit life. In him was no darkness, only light, only goodness and truth. Our ability to understand goodness and truth comes through him. Later in the book of John, Jesus Christ would proclaim, I am the way, the truth, and the life, John 14:6, and I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. John 8:12. John 1:5. It's worth noting that the word translated comprehend NKJV has a broad range of meaning and could also easily be translated here as did not overcome. John 1:6. John the Baptist, also known as John the Baptizer. John 1:7. We spoke in the introduction remarks this week that one can not bear witness for themselves. Others must do that to be a valid witness. This Greek for witness muol pharhato upsilon rho alpha, martyria. It's a legal term about the formal declaration of facts based on personal knowledge, testimony given by a witness in a court or before an authority. It carried the same weight as our English testimony under oath. It could be used for a witness statement presented in court, or the evidence itself that confirmed or denied a claim. In the New Testament, paprupia keeps its courtroom imagery. God is the ultimate judge. Jesus and his works are the evidence. Believers are witnesses, giving testimony, euaptupia, about truth. And Satan is portrayed as the accuser, katnu WP, in the heavenly courtroom. Revelation 12:10. We will see this legal idea used many times throughout the New Testament. John 1:10. John Gill's commentary states, the inhabitants of the world knew him not as their creator, nor did they acknowledge the mercies they received from him, nor did they worship, serve and obey him, or love and fear him, nor did they, the greater part of them, know him as the Messiah, Mediator, Savior, and Redeemer. John 1:11, Adam Clarke's commentary states to those of his own family, city, country, and his own people, his own citizens, brethren, subjects, end quote. Christ himself would later say in Matthew 13:57, a prophet is not without honor except in his own country and in his own house. John 1:12. We did not have any right, authority, or ability to become children of God. That had to be given or bestowed upon us. This privilege is promised to those who believe in his name. This word translated in English, believe, in Greek is pitiotepsilonius sigmaiv, present active indicative, third person plural. This tense is continuous in Greek, meaning for this to be true, it must be ongoing, active, living, not a one-time mental agreement of the mind. John 1:14, he is now gone from this being, the Word, who was from the very beginning, was with God and was God, who created all things, and brought us to the fact that this God being, the Word, became flesh, a body of meat of man or beast. The NKJV says he dwelt among us. I think we missed something with that translation. In Greek this says he pitched his tent, or he tabernacled. In Greek this was something temporary. This is a biblical theme we don't want to miss. Just as God's glory, the Hebrew noun Shekinah, meaning the indwelling or dwelling presence of God, actually comes from the same root as shekan, to dwell, was with Israel in the tabernacle. Here now the word logos tabernacles in a temporary flesh among humanity. John 1:16. As Christ was full of grace and truth, so all of us have received from that fullness of grace and truth in our lives. The NKJV says grace for grace. In the Greek this is kiarhoiotanu anatawi kiarhoiotatu omikrons. Charin anti-charitos. The little preposition anutawi is key. It can mean instead of, in exchange for, or following upon. Verse 17 immediately builds on this by saying, "For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ." It's worth pointing out that "but" is not in the original language. No connecting word is included. It's not an either-or statement, as if we have or choose between law or grace. The law was and is a blessing, but even within that law, we were all doomed by it. We needed the gracious gift of forgiveness that came through the perfect life of Jesus Christ and his sacrifice to be free from the penalty of being under the law. John 1:18 says that no one has seen God at any time. John says this again in 1 John 4:12. Later, Jesus himself will say in John 5:37, "You have neither heard the Father's voice at any time, nor seen his form." And again Christ says in John 6:46, "Not that anyone has seen the Father, except he who is from God, he has seen the Father." The God that was seen and heard in the Old Testament was this being, the word Logos, who has now been shown to be Jesus, Christ, the Son of God. The Son has now made known the Father. Anyone desiring more information, I went through this in a sermon entitled, "The God Who Was Seen and Heard,"